Radiohead's third studio album, OK Computer, released in 1997, was the blueprint for what the band became. Sonically experimental, with a unique creative edge that set them apart from many other guitar bands, especially ones that still remain commercially successful. Their previous album, The Bends, was a big success, with great songs such as High and Dry and Fake Plastic Trees, helping shake off their association with the early 90s grunge movement. Creep had been their biggest hit by far at that point, and this borrowed heavily from the soft verse, loud chorus blueprint, made popular by bands such as Nirvana. With The Bends, the band proved to their record label that they could be more experimental in creating interesting soundscapes, but OK Computer would see them push this much further, even to the point that the label predicted a demise in popularity. Although the majority of the album was recorded in a 2-month studio session, the earliest recording to appear on the album was completed back in September 95. Lucky was Radiohead's contribution to the War Child charity album organised by Brian Eno. It was completed in 5 hours, with producer Nigel Godrich at the helm. Nigel had worked with the band previously, but mainly as an assistant to the assigned producer, so this was a significant step up in their collaborative relationship. Godrich remembers, "Those things are the most inspiring, when you do stuff really fast and there's nothing to lose. We left there feeling euphoric. So after establishing a bit of a rapport work-wise, I was sort of hoping I would be involved in the next album." Godrich was of course asked by the band to do just that, despite their label touting some more established names at the time such as REM producer Scott Litt. With Nigel on board, their idea was to record the album themselves and away from the city and any conventional recording studio. The initial sessions took place in their own space they named Canned Applause Studio. This was a converted shed near Didcot in Oxfordshire, close to their homes in the same county. Although they had the right equipment, backed by Parlophone's advance of £100,000 and bought with Nigel's advice, they didn't feel that the Canned Applause setup was going to help them get the best results in the end, despite being on the cusp of completing 4 songs there. No Surprises, Electioneering, Subterranean Homesick Alien and The Tourist. A short break to tour with Alanis Morissette saw the band receive another commission, this time from Baz Luhrmann, to write a song for the film Romeo and Juliet. Exit music for a film is what they came up with, and was to be played over the end credits, although it was omitted from the soundtrack release at the request of the band and added to their own album instead. This was recorded at St Catherine's Court. St Catherine's was a historic mansion near Bath, owned by Jane Seymour. It was mostly used for corporate functions, but had also been the venue for the recording of The Cure's album Wild Mood Swings a few years earlier. St Catherine's Court's roomy ambience was just what the band were lacking in their previous attempts at recording. A great example of this is exit music for a film's atmospheric vocal, which was recorded halfway up the court's stone staircase. Drawing on the character of this unique environment proved to be really inspiring to the band at the time. Nigel believed that traditional studios were not necessarily the best places to be creative. He felt they didn't allow the artists to be comfortable enough to really immerse themselves in the music they were making. He said they're a bit akin to a public toilet in the way that it's just a constant stream of different artists and nothing felt particularly special. The band were also enjoying Nigel's role in assisting the band creatively. He said that Radiohead needed to have another person outside their unit, especially when they were all playing together, to say when the takes go well. "I take up slack when people aren't taking responsibility. The term producing a record means taking responsibility for the record. It's my job to ensure that they get their ideas across." It was also his job to organise the recording equipment used for the sessions, the main control room they set up at the house, centred around the Malcolm Toft designed MTA 980 console. Other sub-mixing desks also included the much less glamorous Soundcraft Spirit 24. Everything was recorded to tape on the 24-track 2-inch Atari MTR 9011. Pro Tools was also used for editing though. Some of the effects included the Neve 33609 limiter, Uri 1176 compressors, the EMT 140 plate reverb, AMS reverbs and delays, and the Pultec EQP1. Around 80% of the record was recorded live, with songs like Let Down being recorded with the band playing in the master ballroom at 3 a.m. Ed said, "Something special happens when you're playing live. A lot of it is just looking at one another and knowing there are 4 other people making it happen. Many of Tom's vocals were first takes. He felt that if he made other attempts at it, he would start to think about it and it would sound really lame." Let Down features one of the most unusual instruments on the album, the ZX Spectrum. This 8-bit computer, used by all the band members in their youth, was used to generate random notes in the same key as the song. Nigel explained, "We also recorded the sound of the program being saved. You'd have to record the audio file in to load or save the program that generates these notes." Another unusual appearance on the album came in the form of Fred, a synthesized text-to-speech voice from Apple's SimpleText word processor from the original Mac OS. Any current Mac users can access the original Fred voice with SimpleText's successor, TextEdit,
by modifying the spoken content panel in the accessibility section of System Preferences.
Other more traditional synthesizers being used included the Novation Bass Station on Climbing Up the Walls and the Korg Prophecy on Airbag. This track also features the Akai S3000 sampler, which was used throughout the album to create loops. The Minimoog, Mellotron and Fender Rhodes were also used, and this is heard prominently on Subterranean Homesick Alien. There was no set way of recording, and quite often it could be quite simplified in order to run with a creative flow. Phil's kit at the time was a Premiere XPK kit, and for the song Exit Music for a Film, was set up in a very dead-sounding children's playroom with just a few cheap mics on it, and these were like the Octava MK012s and an AKG D112. He employed a similar approach when it came to recording guitars. It's just really basic. I'm not particularly anal about miking up guitars and stuff. As far as I'm concerned, you stick an SM57 in front of the amp, and that's what it is. If the sound is good out the amp, then it'll sound good. And more importantly, you just want to get everything set up so everybody can play. My engineering might not be the most refined, but I've learned that that's not what it's about. It's not about getting the most hi-fi sounding thing. What makes a good record is the vibe, and how everyone just falls together. The band's guitars for the album are varied, but a mainstay for Tom was his Yari-built Alvarez DY88 that features on Paranoid Android and all over the album. Electric guitars used by Johnny included 75 Fender Starcaster and Fender Telecaster Plus, with Ed using the Rickenbacker 360 and Fender Stratocaster. Tom's electrics were the Fender Telecaster Deluxe and Fender Jazzmaster. Colin played his Sunburst Fender P-Bass into a Gallon & Kruger head and SVT cabinet. The guitar amps used were the Vox AC30s for clean tones, with Ed using a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier tremor verb for distorted tones. Johnny opted for the solid-state Fender 85 for his distorted tones. Effects were plenty on the album, and really helped to create the atmosphere of otherworldliness. They included the Roland Space Echo, the Mutronics Mutator, Digitech Whammy, Dodd DD440 Envelope Filter, EHX Smallstone, and EMT 140 Plate Reverb. The song Subterranean Homesick Alien features all these effects at some point or another. For vocals, Nigel preferred to use the Neumann Valve 47 into the URI 1176 compressor and Pultec EQP1, and without much further processing, just a bit of plate reverb and short delay. The Neumann wasn't exclusively used though, with the much cheaper Rode NT2 also being employed. After everything was recorded, string overdubs took place at Abbey Road Studios, while mixing took place at Air and Mayfair Studios. Everything then came back to Abbey Road for mastering, and it was at this point that Nigel and the band really felt that they'd achieved something. The album's title had actually been a working title for Palo Alto, a B-side for the single No Surprises. The title stuck with the band, with Johnny Greenwood saying, "It started attaching itself and creating all these weird resonances with what we were trying to do. It's actually taken from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, with one of the characters saying, 'Okay computer, I want full manual control now.'" The band listened to this series on their tour bus during their 1996 tour, and Tom made a note of the phrase. The album was released in May 97, and contrary to the record label's predictions of poor sales, the album topped the charts and was almost instantly declared a masterpiece by critics. Nigel said, "As a band, they're very innovative musically, and in their approach to everything, they're very open-minded. It's an art to them, and that's so refreshing to be around, because normally with the guitar thing, people always want to go backwards."